The book of Numbers. Last week we ended with Leviticus, and so what I want to do is go really quickly. We're having a little competition, is who can get closest to the time that we were allowed. So here we go, are you ready? The book of Numbers. It's quite likely that our friend Moses probably wrote the book of Numbers. There's a few references, especially in chapter 33 and 36, where God asks Moses to write down all of the things that had been happening in the 38 years, obviously, that Israel spent in the wilderness. That's what it is. It was supposed to be an historical account of that bit of time they were in the desert. Its audience was supposed to be the younger generation of Israel, to remind them of God's grace and to help them remember what happens when you are disobedient to God. And they say, hey look, here's what happened to your ancestors. Let's try and not do that again, which is a good idea, isn't it? So the book of Numbers is all about them, and we join them at Mount Sinai, where they've been for a while. They'd just made a covenant with God. He had just given them the 10 Commandments. That's where we are. And so what follows from chapter 1 verse 1 to chapter 36 verse 13 is essentially a meticulous travel journal. I wonder if anybody has made one of them before. It's like a travel log of where they went, who was there, and what happened when they got there. The Hebrew name for this book is actually translated in the desert, which is very apt for this book, isn't it? We have it in our Bibles, in my Bible here, it's called Numbers, because a lot of what happens in it as well is that it talks about the census they took. It talked about how they organized themselves into the tribes and how they organized themselves around the tabernacle. Lucy and I spent about 2 weeks in the summer travelling around the top of Scotland as our little holiday this year, and that's how long it should have taken the Israelites to get to the promised land. But instead, it took them nearly 40 years. The book is broken up into the 3 main places where they camped, and in between the journeys that they took to get there. Near the start of the book, they reach the promised land, but actually they decide that it's too scary, and they act out of fear. Even though God had guided them all that way and provided for them all that way, they were too afraid to go in. They disobeyed, and because of that, God made them wander in the desert until the new generation, with Joshua, were ready. And this book is really all about disobedience and God's grace in spite of that disobedience. He still let them make the wrong decision, didn't he? He let the consequences of their decision play out. You know, there was a whole generation who didn't see the promised land, and the book finishes just before they enter. So there's your little summary, there's your little overview of what the book is all about. And I've got to pick one verse now of Numbers and talk a little bit about it. How could I go through Numbers and not choose chapter 6 verse 24? Are you ready? Because this is great. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. And yes, I need to apologise right now because my boss, he's not going to be happy, is he? Because I've used more than one verse. But how could I not use those verses? How could I not use that passage? I'll go and say my apologies now. What happened is God gave Moses this blessing, that chunk of writing there, and he gave it to him to say every single day. And what they did was they had a daily service, and at the end of their daily service they would say that blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. That's exactly what they did. God didn't want them to miss out on their blessing. He didn't want ignorance or forgetfulness to be a reason for them not to be blessed. He made them say the words every day so they didn't miss out. Those people, it was those people that God knew would eventually disobey him, but he still wanted them to be blessed. And you know, tonight, God wants you to be blessed. You are his children, and he loves you. So how does that affect your life? Well, what you need to know every single day, you need to remember that you are blessed by God and you are loved by him. Every time you walk out of your house, you are backed by the creator of the universe. You don't need to fear what tomorrow brings, because I'm reminding you, we as a team at Destiny, the leadership team, are reminding you tonight that you are blessed. Be blessed of the Lord. Maybe like the children of Israel, God's asking you to do something that you may be afraid to do. Well, you need to remember, he is with you. Let's not make the same mistakes in our lives, acting out of fear. We're saying this over you tonight. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you in this uncertain, strange time and give you peace. And that is Numbers.